Welcome to the功夫媽媽秀. We are very excited today. We are doing another virtual podcast. Dun, 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 dun. And we have entrepreneur, parent of two little boys, 5-year-old and 3-year-old, the founder of the podcast, The Talk, and a business consulting company called CEO Parent. We're very, very fortunate to have Jeremy Cortez here today. Hello, Jeremy. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very, very blessed to be here.
I'm so excited to speak with you, especially parent to parent. I know we had some conversations over Messenger about parenting and all things wonderful. So, so it's 2021 now, and we all know that 2020 was a tough year for all of us. And I know that you managed to start your business under such difficult circumstances, and maybe more than one. Yes, could you tell us a little bit about that journey?
So it was a little serendipitous. You're right. I actually was able to start 3 new businesses during the pandemic. One, though, I kind of cheated because years ago, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and he kept on saying, winter is coming, winter is coming, winter is coming. And what he meant was there's going to be a recession that's going to hit in the next 3 to 5 years. So when I had that foresight, I was actually gearing up to build a business, and I started something more out of a curiosity in 2019, but I kind of let it go. And when 2020 hit, pandemic hits, lockdown hits, I said, well, what better time than now to start this, really? And from that, I kind of had a head start as to starting and really getting that business launched. Outside of that, I believe that entrepreneurship is actually very simple. As long as you have something that's very valuable, it's actually very easy to earn money from it. And if the value is there, people will want it. So whether or not you're in a pandemic or not, entrepreneurship is very simple.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about what that business entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I had this foresight that a recession was coming, and I had this hallucination about what would happen during a recession. We may lose jobs. Job market might be not there. People may, and this whole idea about side hustles was starting to really become a buzzword, where everyone started to want to have a side thing that was fulfilling them as well as making a little bit of money. And so I had this hallucination about, would it be possible to provide simple steps to people who've never started a business? And like we're both parents, and I wrote a book 2 years ago called Parenting a Business, where it basically talks about the ins and outs of parenting and how that is extremely similar to running your own business. Mm-hmm. So this new company is really just helping parents start their own side businesses should they ever desire to do so. But we don't necessarily need to learn anything new. We have all the business experience we ever needed. We just call it parenting.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So I guess that's why you say that parenting and entrepreneurship are dramatically similar. Can you tell us more about what that entails?
Absolutely. So a little backstory. So I'm turning 39, 40, something around there. I'm just going to round and make it a little hazy. I started my first business when I was 19, but I didn't really experience business success until I had my first son. And what I realized was that parenting really came very easy for me because I kind of just applied all the business knowledge that I had accumulated over the years. Mm-hmm. And I started seeing so many parallels. And at the time when I wrote the book, a lot of my friends were asking me, Jeremy, I wish I could start a business like you. I wish that I had business experience. I wish that I went to school for business. Mm-hmm. And I looked at them, and we're all parents. And I said, you're actually a business owner. You just call it parenting. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, you've got 2 kids right now. Do they fight? And they'll say invariably yes. And I say, well, guess what? You now have HR experience. And then another thing that I was thinking about was when my son was 2 years old, he was this master negotiator where he I would tell him 1 more minute, and he'd look at me and say 5. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give you at least 3. So good job, and it dawned on me that no one's going to have more leverage on us as parents than our children. But if you can get your children to listen to you on a semi-weekly basis, you can probably convince an adult to buy your product or service. And I've had pushback from other parents by saying, well, I bribe my kids with iPads or with cookies. I can't do that with an adult. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that, buy one, get one free, we'll pay the tax, we'll pay shipping and handling. That isn't an incentive as well. Mm-hmm. And once people started to see that they actually already had these innate skills of negotiation, of budget, of time management, you can really apply this to a business. And instead of having your business talk back to you, AKA your child, you can have a business that you shape in the manner in which you want it to be and act.
I see. So how long in between starting your own business and then having your first child was that?
So I started at 19. My son was born in 2015. So 15 years. So when they say that 9 out of 10 businesses fail, yeah, I experienced the 9 that didn't work out. And then when I had my son, that 10th one really hit. So
nice.
I really, and again, it really is true that 9 out of 10 businesses fail, but that is not necessarily the whole story. It's not that the statistics are against you. It's just that there is a huge learning curve that we as business owners have to learn in order for us to succeed. And what I usually say is, if you think about a doctor has to go through traditional school, then med school, then residency, then blah, 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 blah. And it's before they can start their own practice, there's 12 years of learning. They're making a little bit of money, but it's nowhere near what they can make when they have their own business. In my eyes, when you say 9 out of 10 businesses fail, those 9 other businesses are nothing more than your residency, where you get to work to learn, and you get to learn more about yourself, about what you like and what you're not necessarily great at, and what you can delegate towards a business. And then from that, you get your 10th win.
Yeah, exactly. I totally 100% agree with you. But I also feel like it's something about being actually doing, right? Actually doing, like having the idea, but actually following through and doing it, and you'll see whether it works or not. For example, our podcast that we're in here today.
Amen. Yes, they're all experiments until proven otherwise.
Yeah, actually, can you tell me a bit about your podcast as well, The Talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, honestly, I didn't think that I would enjoy podcasting. I was so hesitant to start one, but I got curious. We were in a pandemic and people said, Jeremy, you should start a podcast. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to be another one of those. And then, and then a friend of mine, he had a mic, and I looked at it and I said, you know what, can I just borrow this mic? I'm going to at least try it. At the very least, I'll try one. If it doesn't work out, no one will ever hear it, but at least I'll explore it. And I had a friend of mine come on. And the concept, again, parenting and entrepreneurship. So what I did was I reached out to my network, and I found all these parents who already had businesses in every walks of life, from millionaire parents to parents who literally have 10 kids, and who, to single parents, seriously, 10 kids, listen to that episode, it's amazing, to parents who are single parents, to parents who quit their jobs during the pandemic to start their business full time. And my thought process was, can we provide provide examples of different parents who succeeded in different circumstances? And my idea was just to talk to parents. How are you able to relate to, how are you able to balance this thing called parenting while you were creating your business? And my hope was other parents that were listening to this are able to say, oh, wow, they have 10 kids. I only have 2. If she can do it, I can do it too.
Exactly.
And that was kind of like my hope. And so when I did my first one, amazing man. He's a brilliant a doctor in Georgia. And when we did the podcast, I couldn't be happier. I just had a beautiful conversation with a friend of mine, but we unpacked all these different aspects of parenting and business. And by the time we were done, I was glowing and I was addicted. So it's called The Talk, and our slogan is Parents, it's time for us to have the talk. And it was just this play on words where we get to have fun, we get to learn a little bit, and hopefully we can laugh as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you in that. Like, once you start it and once you start connecting with people around the world, like we're doing right now, it just, I love how it's just motivating, because especially when you're a parent. Yeah, so especially when you're a parent, it's really nice to have also a network of other parents to support you. Did you find there's something that's very similar, or is there a certain approaches that you found throughout each of the podcasts? There's some sort of a theme that these parents and CEO parents were, talking about?
The most successful parents that I've interviewed, millionaire, multi-millionaire parents, what I've learned from them was that they did what they did best, and they didn't try and do more. I feel like, at least for me, even prior to being a parent, when I was trying to create all my other businesses, I would be inspired by the Mark Cubans, by the Benioffs, by the, all the successful billionaires out there. And I had this, delusion about what I had to be in order to reach quote unquote success.
Right.
All the parents I've talked with were just real. Again, I go back to the parent with 10 kids. Here's a woman who, I'm just going to say this really quick. 18 years old, had her first kid, never graduated high school, never graduated college, had 10 kids by the time she was 35, and she created a multi-million-dollar business within 10 years after that. And she was living in poverty. And even if I told you what she did, which was so basic, but it was in doggy daycare. Of all things, it's not in tech, it's not in, products, it was in taking care of dogs. But she didn't stray away, and she didn't try to be more than what she was. She stayed with what she knew, and she was a master at it. And every other parent who has experienced success found the thing that really resonated with them.
Right.
And they didn't try and be more than that. They could expand based on who they are, but it wasn't this, I have to change my identity so that I could be fill in the blank. And it was so far from the case.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's really cool. So when you you also have a consulting company called CEO Parent, right? So is this something, do you help to bring out this passion, or do you help to bring out, kind of have people identify what they are, what they're good at, or?
So it's twofold, really. So on one end, we help parents start businesses from scratch. If you have this curiosity, I call it an itch. If you have this itch and you just want to at least scratch it once, I'm not telling you that you have to quit your job. But what I am saying is that it is possible for you to at least dip your toe into the water and get an idea of whether or not this is for you. I believe that everyone should be a business owner, but I also believe that personality, it can be a risky and scary thing when you hear the statistics and blah, 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 blah. So is it possible for us to give you a sample of what it could be like to start your own business and possibly even make money doing it? And by the end of it, you can say, yes, this is for me, or you know what, I tried it, it no longer itches, and I don't want it. Because at least when you do that, you'll never have that itch again, because you've said you've done it. Like for me, I've done skydiving once, and I'll never do it again. It was not that enjoyable for me than it was for most people. But at least I can say I did it. There's no more of this curiosity. Same with business. There's a risk involved, et cetera. And so we provide a plan based on who you are. We kind of evaluate who you are and what you would be good at and what type of business you would be good at. But more importantly, design the business in a way that fits your personality and not just say, well, you're supposed to do this, 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 and this. I'm like, no, you enjoy doing this, 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 and this. So that means we need to automate or delegate this, and this. So we really want to set you up for success so that you can do the things that you enjoy and really get an honest taste of business. Then, if we're successful and you want to take it to the next level, or people who hear this and they say, I already have a business, but I've reached the ceiling. Mm-hmm. There are parents out there, or there are business owners out there that have done the work, they have some money, they have some business, but they've reached a ceiling. They can't break over X amount of business. Well, that is, and they don't know what else to do. We also provide services where we say, okay, there's usually a gap between where you are and where you want to go. If, let's just say you're making $100,000 and you want to make $1 million, where's the gap? Is it an operations thing? Is it a hiring thing? Is it a marketing and sales thing? Do we need to create a different product, et cetera, et cetera? And so we help already established business owners get to the next level of what they desire by filling in the gaps.
I see. So let's take it back, take it a step back, and how do you apply that to your own children? I hear your son is also an entrepreneur. How has your consulting for your son been? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The best moment of my life thus far. My wedding day was the best day until last year in May. So thank you, pandemic. It was a fun ride, but this was definitely the icing on the cake. So my son turned 5 in May, mm-hmm. and he got some toys. He got some stuff, and then he looks at me and he says, "Daddy, I want a toy from Amazon." He already knows what Amazon is, and he already knows how to buy stuff on there. That's not my doing, by the way. And so I looked at him and I said, "Well, you're 5. You can earn money." It was like I didn't feel right. I didn't feel right to just give him money. I'm like, you're 5, you can earn money. But I didn't feel right about him doing chores, because chores we're going to have to do the rest of our lives until we delegate it to somebody else, and we don't necessarily get paid for it. So when I talked with him, I said, it's time for you to earn money. And out of his curious mind, he said, well, how do I do that? And I said, well, you create value for somebody. You give something or you do something for somebody else that they find valuable. In exchange, they give you money. And you take that money and then you get your toy or whatever you want. And his toy was $30 for a 5-year-old. I remember when I was 5, the toy that I wanted was like $6, and I got the death stare by my parents. He wants a $30 toy. And so he goes, well, what can I do? I'm like, well, what do you enjoy doing? And he said, well, I enjoy drawing. Could I draw people photos and have them buy it? And I said, yes, you can. Well, who do you think would want to buy this? And he starts naming every family member there is. And I said, this is a great idea. Would you like to call them? And he goes, yes. So we start calling, and it's a Monday. At 9 a.m., everyone's at work. And we've called like 6 people and no one's picking up, and he's getting a little discouraged. I'm like, do you want to stop? He's like, no, I want to keep going. Finally, we get a hold of his uncle. And his uncle, we go on Zoom, and he looks at me. He's waiting for me to kind of cue him in. So I give him his script. I tell him to say, Uncle, I want to earn money so I can buy this toy. It's $30. Can I draw you something and sell it to you so that you can give me money so I can earn? And he's like, absolutely. What can you draw? And he looks at me. I'm like, well, what does he want? And then he goes to his uncle. He says, what would you like? And he knows that my son loves Mario and Luigi. So he goes, I would like a picture of Mario and Luigi. So the camera's right there, and he's drawing it live for him. He finally shows it to him, and he's like, awesome. How much do you want to sell it for? He's looking at me for a cue, and I'm like, how much do you want to sell it for? And he goes, well, how much is my toy? And I said, $30. He looks right in the camera, and he says, $10. And I'm like, oh, he's so good. And sure enough, his uncle gives him the money, and he makes $10. He loves the idea, and now it's a rinse and repeat business. We do this, I can't tell you how many times. And then some of our relatives, some of his cousins were like, $10 is too much, but I'll pay $5. He ends up drawing like 15 drawings in the span of a week. And I even posted this online, and people online wanted. They're like, "I'll even pay for shipping. I'll pay for shipping and handling. You just tell me how much it is, and I'll buy it." By the end of a week, he made $150.
Wow.
So when I say business is simple, a 5-year-old can do it. I'm telling you guys, it's classic. And that was by far the best feeling that I've ever had.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So he got his toy and he can actually buy 5 of them.
He could buy 5. Well, it's so funny now because I took a photo of him counting all of his money on the couch, and I'm like, oh, and then he took a photo with the toy that he bought, and then now he goes, "Daddy, do you need money? I can make more money for you if you want." I'm like, wow, what did I just create? I'm kind of proud. I don't know what to say. I'm like, you want to work, and you want to work so that I don't have to work anymore? High five. Go for it. You do your thing, bud. So, yeah, definitely a highlight of last year.
Amazing. So is there anything else that he's thought about to, like, does he now, like, pitch ideas to you?
Well, it's funny because I was curious. 3-4 months later, he got his toy. He's got all this money in a piggy bank. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, buddy, do you want to keep doing your business?" And he said, "No, there's nothing I want to buy right now." I'm like, oh. Okay, well played. At least you know your motivators. So, but he knows he has this in his back pocket. And it's funny too, because I've actually had some people push back because I tell them how simple it is, a 5-year-old can do it. And some people would say, "Jeremy, that's nice, but people did that out of support for your son, and he's 5 years old." And I said, yes, but the value wasn't the photo that he was selling them. The value was connection. And it was this idea of contribution. What do you think fundraisers are for? Mm-hmm. People buy things and they overbid on stuff because of their sense of contribution. That is a strategy that you can use. If you say we are a locally owned business, if you say that we are a single mom doing, whatever, creating a whatever product or has a service, there is a level of contribution that we as human beings resonate with, and we want to contribute to these things. That's just one tactic. It just so happens that he used it to perfection. So people out there who think that they can't do it because they're not 5 years old, that's just one of many tactics that you can use in order to generate revenue and business and exposure to get your business off the ground.
Definitely. Amazing. So you mentioned that your child also does Amazon and he can buy his own things on there.
Yes, he can.
Is there what's your take on children using electronics and iPad in this day and age?
Well, there's 2 trains of thought. Number one, prior to having kids, I was one of those parents who said, "I won't let my kid watch TV because I am not going to be that parent. I am not going to be lazy." Oh boy, was I wrong. The way I see technology, there's 2 parts to this. Number one, technology, iPads, gadgets, that's actually the wave of the future. So it's not to say that they can't use it, but it is to say, what are they learning? How are they consuming? And the reality too is, this idea that technology is bad came from what? Our parents who said, "Don't watch too much TV, you'll go cross-eyed, you'll go blind, you'll be dumb, da 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 da." But the reality is that was based on a timeline when technology was not dominant in the workforce. Mm-hmm. As time changes, we're seeing kids becoming multimillionaires playing video games. We are seeing, there's a show called Ryan's World. The kid has a $5 million net worth and he has a YouTube channel.
Right.
So it's not to say that technology is bad. I would say that technology is useful based on the personality. And I'll give you an example. My 5-year-old loves iPad. He uses it all the time, but he's inspired because now he wants to perform because he watches Ryan's World and he sees this performance and he loves performing. So when he's done, he'll come to me and he'll start performing and I'll eat it up. My younger son, he's 3. He doesn't like iPads. He'll watch it, but invariably it'll be quiet in the room. He'll have an iPad and out of nowhere, he'll put it down and he'll go get a book. Mm-hmm. So it's not to say that technology is bad.
Yeah.
It's just saying that we as parents have to pay attention to what our kids are doing and how can technology enhance their personalities to be more of who they already are. That's how I see it. Is it right? I don't know, but it's right for us. And the other thing too is I make my kids work for it. So what does that mean? Before my son can watch his iPad, he has to do all of his homework and he has to clean up his room and the living room. My younger son, same thing. If there's any toys around, he's 3. He knows, and he'll say, iPad, Daddy. And I'll look at him, I'll say, clean first. And he'll go and clean. He'll put all of his toys away. Then he'll smile and he goes, iPad, Daddy. And I'll say, there you go. Way to earn it. So it's not to say that it's going to just dominate their life. But again, I believe that kids are intuitive enough. And if we pay attention and if we're there to really be in tune with who they are and how it's really shaping them, technology is not necessarily a terrible thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I also find that they actually learn a lot of things from some of these programs. And it's surprising. I mean, Kylie's only 2 years old, but it's surprising some things that I hear her say. I'm like, oh my gosh. Did I teach her that? Like, how do you know those words, or how do you know that vocabulary already? Like, I don't remember saying that. I mean, of course, like everything is like in the kid-friendly zone, so it's not anything out of like the ordinary here that she's learning, but it's just things that I didn't think that I taught her. Like, and yeah, it's funny, and she also really likes to share, and I feel like that's also something that she's learned from her program, like. Ever since she was well, she is still little, but yeah, there's a lot of things.
I'll also probably say this too, that because technology has been so much involved in our lives, you know, during Christmas time, my son got how to code, you know, electronics, and he loves to play with them. Mm-hmm. And there will be all these reading and these, I mean, let's be real. During a pandemic, we have school, but this is all online learning. Mm-hmm. So is now technology bad or not? Because they're meeting their classmates and teachers through a screen. So when does technology become bad? So again, I just believe that the old thinking about technology being a bad thing and that you're a bad parent if you just keep them on it, I would say that, well, it's based on your intention. If it's your intention that they're going to learn, but then they also get to have free reign over their own time, then it's great. If it's just a babysitter while you go off and doing other things, but your child is really just wanting your attention, then there can be some disconnect in terms of whether or not it's valuable or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also the time limit, and like in terms of like, it's just for their vision. I think when they're younger, you know, if you spend too much time on the iPad, it's a thing about having their eyes develop, you know,
sure, of course.
And the negative impacts of that. But in terms of technology, and especially during the pandemic, I think it's definitely brought the world closer together. Yes. I mean, especially since there's so much, like, this is what we're doing now. It's just so normal now. I mean, it's cool. It's bringing the world together. And maybe before that, you know, I would have only had guests, you know, come here in person, but then I can't connect with the rest of the world. But it's just it's so normal now to do this. So I love that. So
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, the fact that we have this opportunity together, I've met so many people across the world. The world became smaller and more accessible because of the pandemic, and because we are able, because now this is the new standard. I am able to meet people face to face all across the world. One of the companies that I've created is an international company where we have people who work with us all across the world. And I would not have ever thought to create something like that hadn't had it not been for something like a complete lockdown of the world for me to like, well, if we can't do that, then we might as well just do this online. So absolutely. I think that technology has really brought us together.
And especially even just my friends, we don't catch up that often, but everyone had the time to catch up, my friends from University of Toronto. I went to University of Toronto, and my friends from Virginia, but I've been here in Asia for so many years, but then we connected in 2020, and also definitely for business wise, so I never would have thought that I would sign a sales agent for our film without meeting him. Like I never met our sales agent for our film, and he's amazing. And we've never met in person. We've only met through Zoom. It's kind of interesting that way, and that it's new. It's also a new part of business, right?
Yes. But again, I would hope that, whether it's a silver lining or whether it's the lesson learned, that, again, if you lock us in, we still can connect. We still, like, there are more ways to evolve there. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that we can connect globally. Again, yes. I just feel like the world has just gotten so much smaller because of this access. And because of this new understanding and this new, and like you said, it's a psychology now. Before, we would never think to do anything like this because it would be weird. But out of necessity to connect with another human being, when the pandemic first happened, I met people through different social media groups who were like, "Oh, you do this too? Can we talk?"
Yeah.
My parents never told me to never talk to strangers, but why not? I've connected and I'm now friends with so many people that anytime I want to go across the world, I have an invite to a home, because it's just because our connection is so deep now.
Exactly. I mean, we met through Asian Hustle Network. Represent.
That's right.
They're like awesome. So, is there any advice you'd like to impart on all the parents listening that are interested in starting their own business?
For parents, I usually just say keep it simple. We don't have to necessarily create the multi-billion-dollar business overnight. There's a saying that we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 10. So anyone who's ever had the desire to want to start a business, it's a very simple process of just try it. You've got kids, they're picky eaters. What do we say? Try a new food. Just give it a taste. You don't have to have the whole buffet. We don't have to eat the whole plate. Just try one bite. Mm-hmm. And in business, it's very similar. If risk is something that you don't like entertaining, then make it not risky. Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I said, if you're worried about losing money on something, like say an investment for a new business idea, what is something that you can substitute? So instead of it coming out of your personal savings, let's just say that you don't eat out once a week, and all that money that would be going towards eating out, you would normally do anyways, but now that's going to be going towards your investment. So you're not necessarily going to miss the money. And so therefore, there's no risk because you're not necessarily, you're not eating out, but you're getting a taste for a business that could probably pay for you eating out later on. So setting yourself up to win by just trying it as safely as you are comfortable with. So it's not to say that you have to quit your job, cash out your investments, and go all in full tilt boogie. But know your comfort level of risk and set yourself up to at least try it and see whether or not it even interests you.
Great. That's amazing. I feel like you're so suitable for podcasts. You're so suitable for writing books. And now the new pivot is online classes. I don't know if you've done that already, but I feel like that you're so well spoken, and the things that you say, like even just in that last segment, is just very quotable. Very
Thank
quotable.
You. It's funny because some of the clients I have, I'll record our meeting so that, because a lot of times I go unconscious when I talk. I just speak from the heart because I love reading, and I just trust that whatever I read will come out when it needs to. And so I'm very much unscripted. So invariably I'll say something and I'm like, wait, what did you just say? I'm like, I have no idea. It's on the recording. Go back later. And to your point, I'm actually looking into creating some type of education for this. I have realized very late, and my son even taught me this, that I have a knack for teaching. I love teaching because I love seeing people learn and really absorbing a concept. When I got to see my son start his own business, it really just sealed the deal for me that it's like, okay, there's something here. So I appreciate you saying that, and I know that I'm really on the right track, but that is the next evolution, to create digital education for people so that they can learn as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I learned so much today, and I'm really excited that we got to connect, and I hope that we can speak again and connect in the future.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for having me.
Great. Okay, wonderful.